I'm with Marco Pagliara, Head of Emerging Markets at Deutsche Bank Private Bank. Marco, you were just telling the audience here at the Wealth Management Summit in Asia about why you've chosen to be based in Singapore, because you could have been in Latin America, you could have been in the Middle East, you could have been in Hong Kong. You made this choice of Singapore. What was behind that decision?
It was 3 years ago and continues to be, I think, a no-brainer to decide to come to Asia, and in particular to Singapore. I think we called, as you discussed during the panel, our region emerging market, but today, if I had to rename that, I would call it growth market. So I think here in Asia and out of Singapore, out of Hong Kong, we have an unprecedented growth opportunity in a world that has become more complicated, more treacherous and complex from a geopolitical perspective, and where I think this part of the world has been benefiting from good dynamic, good growth, and great opportunities on the wealth management business. So it was an easy decision for me to come to Asia. I experienced the wealth management business in the US, in Europe, and in Switzerland, and so that completes my profile, and I think it's a great opportunity at this stage.
Is there a feeling in the bank, Marco, that Europe is struggling, the home markets of Deutsche Bank are struggling, that there are energy issues impacting those economies as well, that Asia presents a much better opportunity for growth in private banking, also with the number of entrepreneurs setting up businesses here?
Definitely, there are structural problems and challenges that Europe has to deal with. They stem from issues that are related to dependency that Europe has vis-a-vis providers of energy and need of coordination of political and fiscal action on that side. However, I think our view tends to be more balanced. For example, if you last year were an investor, you would have profited from an intelligent exposure to European market. Now, it's difficult to get exposure to a European market on an undiversified basis. I think you need to be more deliberate. You need to look at industries and opportunities that make sense. But I think we are less skeptical than an average Asian investor would be around the opportunity in Europe. However, the recent event and the conflict in Iran certainly present an additional challenge. And I think that the pain or the challenges will be larger depending on the time that it takes to actually free up the traffic of oil and gas through the Strait of Hormuz. And it is actually very interesting to look at the futures for commodities. When you look at scenarios, and when you look at oil in particular, and if you look at the futures curve for oil, of course, the expectation is that oil price will normalize or lower in a relatively short horizon within the next 12 months. But for example, if you look at the future curve for gas, I think that stays heightened for quite a while. And I think it's related also to the demand for restocking that you would expect from Europe preparing for the winter season. So that is definitely a challenge and definitely one that requires coordinated political and economic action at the European level.
If we look at your competitors across this region, some of them are prioritizing working with clients in China and North Asia, particularly the Greater Bay Area. Others are focusing more on Southeast Asia, the vibrant economies close to Singapore. Which is your main goal in the clients that you seek?
I am quite optimistic about the evolution of the Hong Kong equity market. Of course, we have seen the build-up of a very healthy IPO pipeline that would sustain the economy. I think if you travel to Hong Kong, you find a very effervescent scene and a much livelier environment than the one that you would experience 2 or 3 years ago. And there has been significant progress that has been made also in that center around the attraction of family offices. So we are positive about those opportunities and we are going to be investing in North Asia. However, we are equally positive about the opportunities that continues to be available in Southeast Asia. Singapore has performed as a financial center extremely well. I think the flows into the custody center and the financial center are very positive at the level of the industry, and we continue to experience them. And again, in a context that is for Southeast Asia, facing challenges from provisioning of energy and maybe some more complicated situation in the local economies, I think Singapore stands to benefit from that continuing offering of offshore proposition to neighboring countries.
Marco Pagliara, thank you very much.
Thank you, Yuri.